Jack Eichel isn't happy in Buffalo. The New York Rangers fired their head coach. Toronto have finished top of their division. This season just keeps getting weirder and weirder, eh, folks? Hello, hockey fans, and welcome back to another episode of The Final Buzzer, the show where a ginger-bearded Brit takes you through the biggest stories from across the hockey world over the last 7 days. Now, there's been plenty of news, both positive and negative, within the NHL this past week, some of which I have already alluded to during the intro. However, instead of adding further fuel to an already red-hot rumour mill, or indulging myself in all of the latest gossip, I have instead decided to shift my focus to the more interesting headlines that have perhaps flown under the radar over the last few days. From a franchise's first ever signing to the champions of Europe, from history being made to a century-long streak being broken, oh boy do we have a lot to discuss today, folks. So let's just get right into it, shall we? We'll kick things off with the NHL's latest expansion team revealing their first ever signing. Just 12 days after making their final expansion payment and officially joining the NHL, on May 12, 2021, the Seattle Kraken announced that they had signed Canadian forward Luke Henman to an entry-level deal, making him the first player to ever sign with the organisation, as well as the first Kraken player in franchise history. A fourth-round pick by the Carolina Hurricanes during the 2018 NHL entry draft, Henman has spent the last 3 seasons with the QMJHL's Blainville-Boisbriand Armada, yeah, I definitely butchered that name, didn't I, where he served as the team's captain for the last 2 years and scored 163 points in 158 games for his efforts. Having been left unsigned by the Hurricanes while his contract rights were owned by the team, the 21-year-old forward finally put pen to paper on his first pro deal this past week, as he signed a 3-year contract with Seattle. Of course, whether Henman actually goes on to play for the Kraken remains to be seen over the coming seasons, but regardless of how things end up for both Henman and the team, congratulations are certainly in order, both for the player for becoming part of hockey history as being the first player signed by Seattle, as well as the Kraken for taking their first steps towards building a roster for their debut season in the league. After all, I did say that Seattle might sign their first player sooner than we expected a few weeks ago, so it's nice to be proven right for once, you know? Next up, let's shift our attention to Europe now and discuss the news that the Champions Hockey League has officially finalised their lineup for the 21-22 season. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, the Champions Hockey League is an inter-European competition which sees 32 teams from 13 countries across the continent compete for the CHL trophy and the title of Champions of Europe. Though it was unable to operate during the 2021 season due to the global pandemic, the CHL is set to make its triumphant return during the upcoming season of play, and the league took a pretty big step towards that goal this past week, as they have now finalised all the participants for the upcoming tournament. And who are the 32 teams taking part next year? Well, I'm glad you asked, dear viewer. From Austria, we have KAC Klagenfurt, who are the playoff champions of the Ice Hockey League, HC Bolzano, who are the regular season winners, as well as Red Bull Salzburg, who are the higher-ranked semi-finalists. Then in Belarus, we have Junost Minsk, who are the league champions, while in the Czech Republic, we have Oceleri Trinec, who are the playoff champions, HC Sparta Prague, who are the regular season champions, as well as BK Mlada Boleslav, who are the regular season third-place team. In Denmark, we have the Rungsted Sea Capitals, who are both the regular season and the playoff champions, as well as Sondersjijk, who were the last Continental Cup winners. In Finland, we have Lukko, who are the regular season and playoff champions, IFK Helsinki, TPS Turku and Tappara Tampere, who are the regular season second, third and fourth place teams. In France, we have the Rouen Dragons, who are the league champions. Then in Germany, we have Eisbären Berlin, who are the playoff champions, Adler Mannheim, who are the regular season Group South winners, Red Bull Munich, the regular season runners-up, as well as the Bremerhaven Penguins, who are also regular season runners-up in the other group. In Norway, we have Frisk Asker, the regular season champions, whereas in Poland, we have Jastrzębie, who were the playoff champions as the second seed in the tournament. In Sweden, we have the Frölunda Indians, who are the defending champions and have won more Champions Hockey League titles than anybody else, as well as the Växjö Lakers, the regular season and playoff champions, Rögle BK, who were the playoff second place and the regular season second place, as well as Leksands and Skellefteå as the regular season third and fourth place, while in Switzerland, we have EV Zug, the regular season and playoff champions, HC Lugano, Fribourg-Gotteron, Lausanne HC and Zurich, who are the regular season 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th place teams. Penultimately in Ukraine are getting their first team in the tournament this season, and that is HC Donbass Donetsk, who are the playoff champions of the Ukrainian League. And last but by no means least, from the UK, from the Elite Ice Hockey League, the Cardiff Devils. Now that we have our contestants, the next order of business is the CHL Group Stage Draw. This event will assign each of the 32 sides into a 4-team group in order to determine who will play who during the first stage of the tournament. The draw is taking place on Wednesday around 5 PM UK time, and I'll actually be live streaming my reaction to the whole event on my podcast YouTube channel, so head on over to the Europuck podcast and come and join me if you're interested. Also, if you could subscribe to us while you're there, that would be much appreciated. Thanks, guys. Next up, I think we should talk about the biggest news that the hockey world has seen this last week, and that is the start of the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs. With the bulk of the regular season reaching its conclusion, except for a few meaningless games for the Vancouver Canucks, the unique year that was the 2021 NHL season was all but over, and with it came the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Since the top 4 teams in each division would punch their ticket to the competition, the 16 teams who clinched a berth in the playoffs are as follows. From the West Division, we have the Colorado Avalanche as the first seed, who also won their 3rd President's Trophy as the best team in the league, the Vegas Golden Knights as the second seed, who tied for points with Colorado, but missed out on their first ever President's Trophy due to regulation wins, while the Minnesota Wild surprisingly took the 3rd seed, and the St. Louis Blues earned the 4th seed. In the Central Division, the Carolina Hurricanes took the 1st seed, the Florida Panthers finished in 2nd, the defending champion Tampa Bay Lightning secured the 3rd seed, while the Nashville Predators rebounded from a pretty rough start in order to take the 4th seed in the division. Penultimately in the East Division, the Pittsburgh Penguins took the 1st seed, despite their numerous injury problems this season. The Washington Capitals finished 2nd, the Boston Bruins took the 3rd seed, and the New York Islanders ended up in 4th. And finally in the North Division, the Toronto Maple Leafs finished 1st. Been a while since that last happened, Leafs fans. The Edmonton Oilers sat in 2nd, the Winnipeg Jets took the 3rd seed, while the Montreal Canadiens finished in 4th. This means that the first round of the playoffs will see the Avalanche take on the Blues, the Golden Knights play the Jets, the Leafs against the Habs, the Oilers versus the Jets, the Penguins against the Islanders, the Capitals versus the Bruins, the Hurricanes against the Predators, and the Panthers versus the Lightning. Now by the time this video goes out, the first few games of the postseason will have already come and gone, but I figured I may as well give you some quick, semi-serious predictions on how I think the first round will play out. If you ask me, I think the Avalanche and the Golden Knights will advance from the West Division, not only because they finished as the top 2 teams in the league, but they are probably the deepest and most talented teams at practically every position this season, whereas I really want the Habs and the Oilers to advance from the North Division, as seeing Leafs Twitter completely implode on itself is always hilarious to watch for me, while McDavid's outstanding play shows no signs of slowing down into the playoffs, and I think he could lead the Oilers pretty deep into the competition. I also think that the Hurricanes and the Lightning will advance in the Central Division, as experience goes a long way in the postseason, especially when you consistently make it to the conference finals or even clinch the championship, but the East Division is anyone's guess, at least in my opinion anyway. For the sake of time, I'm going to say that Pittsburgh and Boston will advance to the next round. If the Penguins can stay healthy during the postseason, I think their firepower might be a little too much for the defensively responsible shutdown Islanders to handle, although I think the series will be very close and probably go to 6 or 7 games. While on the other hand, the Boston Bruins, their top 6 are looking real dangerous since they went and acquired Taylor Hall at the trade deadline, and if their back end can withstand the Capitals' own firepower, as well as keep the big bruiser that is known as Tom Wilson in check, I think it will be close, but Boston will end up moving on from that first round. So yeah, those are my quick predictions for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, most of you probably don't agree with my arguments there, and you're heading down to the comments to angrily type how I'm wrong and I should do more research, but the joke's on you guys. I'm not really that bothered who wins the Stanley Cup this season because the New York Rangers didn't make it, and I don't really support any other team as my second team, so take that, haters. Penultimately, I want to highlight the news that the NHL's oldest and most successful franchise saw a pretty incredible streak come to an unfortunate end over the last few days. Ever since the NHL first came into existence, all the way back in 1917, the Montreal Canadiens have not only been a member of the league every single year, they have been home to their fair share of superstar talent and future Hall of Famers. Thanks to their unrivaled success throughout the decades, and their place as the only NHL team in Quebec for much of the league's history, the Habs organisation has become a hotspot for many of the greatest French-Canadian players that the province has ever produced. Though Quebec-born players have been synonymous with the Canadiens pretty much since the dawn of time itself, during a game against the Edmonton Oilers on May 10th, Montreal would end up playing without a single homegrown talent on their roster. Thanks to an injury to Phillip Danault, a personal leave of absence for Jonathan Drouin, and Alex Belzile being made a healthy scratch, for the first time in franchise history, the Montreal Canadiens didn't have a single Quebec-born player on their roster. In fact, this decision ended up breaking one of the longest streaks that the league has ever seen, as the Habs had iced at least one Quebec-born player every single game since their very first contest all the way back in 1917. So in every single regular season and playoff game for the last 104 years, Montreal had at least one French-Canadian on the ice with their team. Forget about the streak being broken, folks. The fact that it lasted for so long is one hell of an achievement, right? Though Montreal would end up losing to the Oilers 4-3 in overtime, their lone point that night would secure them a place at the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it's not all bad, Habs fans? Of course, it sucks that the streak has finally come to an end, considering it had been going strong for over a century now, but I have no doubt that the team will continue to employ a number of French Canadians for many years to come. After all, Marc Bergevin's in charge of the team. He loves a good French Canadian, especially when he's making trades, right guys? Speaking of making history, I want to finish up this episode by looking at another notable milestone that also took place in the league earlier this week. On May 10th, 2021, 27-year-old forward Daniel Walcott made his NHL debut with Tampa Bay as the Lightning took on the Florida Panthers in one of their final games of the regular season. Not only would he earn his first opportunity to play in the best league in the world, the Canadian forward would end up becoming part of league history too. As the two teams lined up for the opening face-off, Walcott, who was playing as the Lightning's fourth-line left winger that night, would find himself on the ice for the first drop of the puck, alongside fellow Lightning forwards Jamel Smith and Matthew Joseph. Though this seems pretty routine on the surface, this trio had just become the first all-black forward line in NHL history. So after Devontae Smith-Pelly, Akil Thomas and Quinton Byfield became the AHL's first all-black line since the 1940s, Walcott, Smith and Joseph had achieved the same feat in the NHL for the first time in the league's 104-year history. It's about time, folks? While this trio would earn their place in the history books, this amazing story would be somewhat overshadowed by the game's final score, as the Lightning would take a 4-0 shutout loss at the hands of the Panthers. That said, Tampa had already secured their place in the playoffs and are currently the defending Cup champions, so I don't think they'll be too worried about this result in the grand scheme of things, do you? Speaking of the 2020 championship, am I the only person that keeps forgetting that Tampa actually won the Cup last season? I don't know whether it was because the playoffs took place at a different time of year, or the circumstances surrounding the entire postseason were very unique, to say the least, but I have to keep reminding myself that the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs actually happened, and Tampa actually won it and are the defending Cup champions. Maybe that's just me, I don't know. But anyway, great going on this one, Lightning. Really good job. Here's hoping that this kind of thing becomes more of a norm as time goes on, and players of all different races and ethnicities get their shot to play in the best league in the world, not because of their race or ethnicity, but the fact that they're some pretty damn good hockey players. And on that note, I'm going to end today's video. What do you guys think about the topics that were discussed in this week's episode? Let me know in the comments below, I would love to hear what you guys think. But thank you very much for watching, guys, I hope you have enjoyed. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, or watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye! A big thank you to Carl Fairbank, Connor B, Drew Fawcett, Houston NG, Jordan Whitehead, Twin Sanity Dad, and Worthless Pieces for helping support this video via Patreon. If you too want to help support the channel a little bit further, and get a shout out at the end of every future video, make sure you head over to patreon.com/oddmanrush and become a patron today.